Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where stories that sound like fiction turn out to be the real experiences of those who lived through them. Today, you're about to hear 6 unforgettable tales, a reckless kick that changed a young boy's life forever, a chaotic ER trip that started with a friend's exploding grapefruits, a student who became a soda-smuggling kingpin and bought a PS2 with his underground earnings, a birthday party no one ever wants to remember, thanks to a very exposed guest, a woman who married for money and lived 2 decades feeling like walking dead, and finally a story that will leave you wondering, is opening your door to a stranger at night an act of kindness or a near-fatal mistake? These stories aren't just for entertainment. They're a reminder. We all make choices. We all make mistakes. And sometimes a single moment is all it takes to change the course of your entire life. My story 1. I made him lose a testicle and never said sorry. I don't even know where to begin, but if there's one thing in my life that I both desperately want to forget and yet can't stop thinking about, this is it. I was around 7 or 8 years old that age, when you still think Pokemon are real and baseball bats can be used to fly like magic brooms. I had just started elementary school with a few old friends from theater class. We were young, rowdy, and full of childish righteousness. Then came this kid a year older than us, German, from an insanely wealthy family. He was repeating the grade, so he was taller and bigger than all of us. And for some reason, he was a bit of a bully. Not a full-on school tyrant kind of bully, but the shoulder-bumping, chair-kicking, snide comment kind. To be fair, we weren't saints either. We'd mock him with dumb stuff like calling him Baby Hitler or other idiotic names. Kids don't understand boundaries. Compassion is about as long as a 15-centimeter ruler. Then, it happened. One day while we were lining up outside the classroom, I, in all my 7-year-old stupid self-righteous glory, kicked him straight in the groin. A full-force action movie-style kick. No real reason, just a compilation revenge for all the bullying up to that point. He collapsed like a tree being chopped down. And me, I ran. Didn't check, didn't look back. All I knew was I won. Or so I thought. A few days later, he didn't show up to school. I overheard other kids whispering that he had to be hospitalized. Then a teacher called me to the office. She didn't yell, she didn't scold, she just calmly said something that made my blood freeze. His testicle was severely damaged. They had to remove it. I didn't even fully understand what that meant at the time. But the image she described, like a crushed tennis ball, is something I'll never forget. I just stood there, frozen. Didn't cry, didn't argue, just silent. I never told my parents. I was too ashamed, too scared. And I knew if my dad found out, I'd be shipped off to some juvenile reform boot camp immediately. Then it got worse. I found out that my dad and his dad were old classmates. A year later, I saw them chatting and laughing at a football game. I stood at a distance, palms sweating, heart pounding like a war drum. All I could think was, please don't bring it up, please. But they didn't. They laughed, shook hands, talked like nothing ever happened, and I just wanted to disappear. I grew up with a gnawing guilt inside. No one ever brought it up again. But I remembered. Every time I saw him after that, I noticed the way he looked at me. Not angry, not vengeful, just cold, sharp. Until one day during our last year campout, he dunked my head underwater in the river. I didn't die. I wasn't even close to dying. But he held me under long enough for me to understand, yeah, this still isn't over. After that, I transferred schools. We never saw each other again. No messages, no apologies. Only one random day years later, we bumped into each other at a coffee shop. We talked for a few minutes. Polite, civil, but we never brought that up. I once wrote a letter to apologize, but I never sent it. I imagined him reading it then, crumpling it up, laughing bitterly, or mailing it back with a note too late. I don't know if he has kids now, or if he even can have kids. That thought haunts me. I'm not telling this story to get sympathy. I'm telling it because Deep down, I still feel like that stupid, reckless 7-year-old kid. And if by some miracle you're reading this, I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I'm haunted by guilt. But because I took something from you that you can never get back, and I never once had the courage to say I'm sorry. Story 2. My friend got kicked in the nuts and I had to take him to the ER, looking like that. I'll remember that day for the rest of my life. Not because it was special, but because it was the day I saw real-life grapefruits on a real human and had to escort a man wearing nothing but a tank top into the emergency room under the judgmental gaze of the entire world. And yes, I said grapefruits, plural. But let me start from the top. That day, I was on my 30-something rewatch of Breaking Bad when my best friend Chris called me with a voice that sounded like he was dying. Bro, I need you. Right now. I thought it was something serious. Car accident. Broken bones, mugging house fire. Nope. Turns out his girlfriend had kicked him in the nuts during a blazing argument that, according to him, all started with the simple question, "So why were you texting your ex at 2 a.m.? I got to his place in about 15 minutes. As soon as I opened the door, I was met with a scene straight out of The Hangover, but the missing pants edition. Chris was sprawled out on the couch wearing only a white Fruit of the Loom tank top, holding a bag of ice between his legs. No pants, no boxers, and not a shred of dignity. I stood there frozen for a few seconds, then said, "What the hell, man? Are you trying to cosplay as a sad adult film star?" He didn't respond. Just groaned, lifted the ice bag, and showed me the injury. The worst mistake of my life was looking. I swear to God, they looked like 2 green grapefruits, purplish, swollen, glistening, and I swear, breathing. I panicked. "Dude, you have to go to the hospital. Like now." Chris screamed back, "No, I can't wear pants. The moment fabric touches them, I want to die." So I tossed him a towel and told him to wrap it up like some old lady going to a hot spring. But he refused to tie it. Just draped it over himself like a scandalous Roman statue. And that's how we ended up 2 grown men, one wearing a towel, the other in gym shorts, heading to the ER looking like we'd just escaped some tribal fertility ritual in the Amazon. At the emergency room, I had to tell the front desk, "My friend suffered severe trauma to the groin area. He can't wear pants. And no, he's not some weird perv." Right then, Chris waddled in behind me, legs spread like something was ticking between them, still clutching the ice pack, face twisted in pain like he was giving birth. The nurse looked at us like she was deciding whether to call security. A few minutes later, they called him in. I sat outside, questioning all my life choices. Should I leave or stay for the sake of friendship? I stayed. Mistake number 2. After examining him, the doctor told Chris one of his boys had a significant hematoma and needed to be drained. I don't know the exact medical term. All I know is that Chris later told me it was like sticking a straw into a grapefruit and sucking. I was nauseous for the rest of the day. In the end, there was no permanent damage. Nothing was lost, anatomically speaking. But dignity that was left on the ER waiting room chair and never picked up. We drove home in silence. As he got out of the car, Chris said one thing. "You're a good friend, but if you ever tell anyone about this, I will kick you the exact same way." I laughed, didn't answer. But years later, I still remember that image vividly. Chris waddling like a duck towel, swaying face pale as death, and the doctor's legendary line, "You're good, but maybe avoid playing soccer," or dating your girlfriend. Moral of the story, don't cheat on your girlfriend. If you cheat, don't let her find out. If she finds out, don't be within range of her legs. And if you get the rescue call, bring pants and some damn memory-erasing pills. Story 3. I used to be the kingpin of soda smuggling in high school, and I bribed teachers to survive. I know. This sounds like the plot of a teenage crime comedy. But I swear every detail is 100% true. And if you ever thought you were clever back in school, allow me to introduce you to my world, where Coca-Cola was currency, Sprite meant power, and I was the hoodie-wearing kid dragging a cooler through the hallways like I was making deliveries for some underground soda mafia. It all started in 11th grade. California, in all its loving concern for student health, had just passed a law banning soda sales on school campuses. The result, kids like me were parched caffeine addicts, started shaking by 9 a.m., and I smelled money. I scraped together the last of my allowance, exactly $17, went to Costco, and came back with 3 24-can packs of Coca-Cola. I sold each can for the same price the school used to before the ban, 75 cents. Net profit about $13 per pack. Not bad for a 17-year-old kid who couldn't even afford a sandwich in the cafeteria. Week 1 sold out. Week 2 I brought more. Week 3 I started taking pre-orders. Kids started calling me Soda Santa even though it wasn't Christmas. I diversified the product line, added Sprite, Dr. Pepper, even Diet Coke for the health-conscious teachers. And yes, I sold to teachers, but I never charged them. I called it the Student Wellness Initiative. Others called it light bribery. Then things got complicated. Another group of students caught the scent of profit and started copying me. They were slinging Cherry Coke, Fanta, Shasta. Some even brought in Mountain Dew, Baja Blast, like they were competing with Taco Bell. That's when I learned my first business lesson. Competition doesn't kill you. Stupidity and lack of alliances do. So I made moves. I started playing nice, handing out free cans to security guards so they'd turn a blind eye to my transactions during history class. I bought 2 thermal bags, filled them with frozen water bottles to keep the drinks ice cold. I scheduled deliveries based on class periods and hallway transitions. I kept inventory records on a freaking Casio calculator. I'm not joking, I ran that operation more efficiently than student council ran prom night. Then one day, I got caught. A substitute teacher walked in on me selling soda during math class. I was sent straight to the front office. But remember, I had alliances. The staff member in charge of discipline that day was the vice principal, who happened to request 2 Diet Dr. Peppers from me every week. I walked in. He looked at me. I looked at him. Silence. Tension. Then he just sighed and said, "Next time, be more careful. Get to class." And just like that, I walked out like a teenage Don Corleone. Except instead of cigars, I had Red Bull. I kept the operation running smoothly for the rest of the school year. By the end of senior year, I had made enough money to pay off all my graduation fees, rent a tux for prom, chip in for the limo, buy a PlayStation 2, and still have enough left for a deposit on a used car. I called it teenage financial independence. Before graduation, I didn't just fade away. I handed down the empire. I trained 2 underclassmen, gave them the customer ledger, and personally introduced them to the VIP clients, aka the teachers who liked diet soda. I left them with a growing market, a loyal customer base, and one unbreakable rule: never let the can fall out of the thermal bag. And if you get caught, ask what kind of diet they want. Looking back now, I don't regret a thing. I wasn't selling drugs. I wasn't breaking major laws. I was just giving thirsty kids a cold Pepsi on a 90-degree day, and that, my friends, is called humanitarian work. Story 4. I ruined my best friend's kid's birthday party because I got high and forgot to pull my pants up. I don't think I'm a bad person. Seriously, I used to be the kind of guy with a steady job, wore a white button-up, and got home on time. But then, life threw a few punches, and instead of fighting back, I just started ducking behind booze, behind meth, and behind friends named Chad and Kenny, who honestly, if the FBI started tailing them now, it'd still be too late. I worked in financial advising. Sounds fancy, right? But after hours, we were just a group of grown-ass men acting like 20-year-old idiots with 0 brain cells. And that very youthful stupidity is what turned a 4-year-old's birthday party into one of the most humiliating memories of my life. My best friend is Ben. He's the responsible type, married, young, had kids, on schedule, owns a grill, you know the type. He invited me to his daughter's birthday, a backyard kind of thing with cake, kitty music, Elsa-shaped balloons. Basically paradise for children and functional adults. Me, I completely forgot about the party. I was at Chad's apartment drinking something he called liquid relaxation elixir, his words. I took a sip. Felt nothing. I even laughed and said, probably bunk. Exactly 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed, Alice's birthday, 3 p.m. I panicked, shot up, called an Uber. No way I was driving with whatever the hell still in my bloodstream. By the time I arrived at Ben's place, I was chill. Everything looked prettier than usual. Children's music sounded like the Beatles. The breeze felt like it came straight from heaven. I smiled to myself. Then a few minutes in, I urgently needed the bathroom. I headed into the guest restroom, and that's when the mystery drink kicked in. My head felt like a balloon. My mouth was drier than the Sahara. Everything around me turned into Disneyland. I mumbled, amazing. This is amazing. I don't remember exactly when I passed out on the bathroom floor, but I do remember the cold tile against my cheek and a knock on the door. You okay in there, Ben's wife? I tried to respond. Why, yeah, just meditating. I have no idea how long I stayed in there. When I finally stood up, my legs felt like dough. I stumbled to the door and walked right into the party. The backyard froze. Kids stopped singing. Adults stopped chewing hot dogs. Ben stopped breathing. And me, the uninvited disaster, stood there, without pants. I had forgotten to pull them up after using the toilet. To make it worse, I was smiling like a junkie who just saw an angel. Ben shouted, "What the hell, pull your pants up?" I looked down, and yep, my guy was out there waving hello. One of the little girls, maybe a friend of Ben's daughter, looked at me and screamed like I was the Scooby-Doo monster. She shrieked, "Auntie, he's not wearing pants," and me. In my drugged-out state, I yelled at her. Not violently, but I said, "Shut up, you annoying little gremlin." Yep, to a 5-year-old, in front of 15 parents. I don't remember much after that. Ben dragged me into the house, stuffed me into his car, and drove me home like I was a radioactive trash bag. I begged him to stop at McDonald's. I sobbed like a toddler because I wanted a McFlurry. Ben yelled like I had just murdered his cat. He said, "You've been my friend for years. You used to be someone I trusted, and now you're the weirdo who whipped it out at my daughter's birthday party." I didn't say a word. I just leaned my head against the window and thought about McNuggets. The next day, I woke up with a migraine that felt like a nail being hammered into my brain. Worse than that, the shame. I ruined a child's birthday. I flashed old people, small children, and longtime friends. I yelled at a kid. Worst of all, I lost the only best friend I still kept in touch with. I texted, called, emailed. Ben never replied. And I get it. That was the day I quit. Alcohol, drugs, Chad and Kenny. I wanted to start over. I'm not telling this to shift blame. I'm telling it because this was rock bottom, and I hope no one else ever reaches it. Next week is my daughter's birthday. I've planned everything, ordered the cake, sent the invites, but I can't stop thinking, what if someone shows up without pants? Yep. I created that fear, and I'll carry it for the rest of my life. Story 5. I married a man 21 years older than me for money and lived like a walking debt for 20 years. I know this story will make a lot of people hate me, or at the very least, look down on me. And I get it, because I used to hate myself too. I got married when I was 19. He was 40. We met when I was 17. I know it sounds gross, but when you're a teenage girl stuck in a town the size of a shoebox, carrying enough emotional baggage to believe your worth is tied to how much someone will spend on you, then maybe you'll understand why I thought this was a fair trade. I had looks. He had money. We got along. Deal closed. Everyone knew. My family knew. My friends knew. And he didn't even bother to hide it. At our wedding, I still remember his best man raising a glass and saying, "Congrats, man, you finally bagged yourself the young dream wife." And I smiled, a smile I'd later recognize as the smile of someone who just signed a lifetime contract, without reading the fine print. At first, everything was fine. He took me on trips, bought me a car, designer handbags, cocktail dresses, things a poor girl like me had never even dreamed of. I felt cooler than girls my age. I thought I'm winning at life. But then, things started to shift. Not with rage, but with subtle, stinging reminders. When I said I wanted to go back to school, he laughed. "What for? I've already taken care of everything." When I said I wanted a part-time job, he shrugged. No one expects my wife to work. When I picked out something expensive, he didn't say no. He just said, "I thought you were more independent by now." So I picked the cheaper option. There were no screams, no threats, just a constant whisper that I was someone living on borrowed favors, and he was the one who could pull the plug anytime he wanted. Years passed. We had 4 kids. We lived comfortably. From the outside, we even looked happy. I learned to survive in a marriage where all the power sat firmly on one side of the table. I didn't complain much. I chose this life after all. I learned when to nod, when to praise, and always kept in mind that he's been supporting me since I had nothing. I learned to turn resentment into gratitude, that I was lucky, that I had a husband who provided, that I should smile because so many women out there don't have what I do. But deep down, I knew I wasn't a wife. I was a long-term investment. And now, he was just collecting returns. Everything changed when my eldest daughter, she's 15 now, walked into the kitchen, pointed at our wedding photo and asked, "How old were you when you married Dad?" I smiled and said I was 19. He was 40. She burst out laughing. "Ew, he was so old. What were you thinking?" I laughed along, but then I couldn't anymore. Because she's only 2 years away from the age I was when he started flirting with me. And I couldn't imagine some 40-year-old man sweet-talking her, telling her age doesn't matter when it comes to love. I couldn't. Just thinking about it made me furious. And that's when I realized I'm not okay. I'm not happy. I'm just really good at justifying old wounds. I don't have a divorce plan. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm not ready to blow up the family I've built over 2 decades. But I've started reclaiming tiny pieces of myself. I've gone back to school, just online night classes for now. I write anonymously on a blog hoping to reach other women like me. And I told my daughter, if a man 20 years older ever tries to date you, run. I don't care if he pays rent or buys you gifts. Run. I don't regret the path I chose, but I would never recommend it to anyone else. Marriage is not a loan agreement, and love should never come with a signature of debt. Story 6. I opened the door for a stranger in the middle of the night, and to this day I don't know if I saved her or almost died. I live alone in a small apartment on the edge of the city, the kind of place Google Maps needs 2 updates just to remember it exists. My neighborhood isn't exactly a slum, but it's definitely not somewhere you'd want to go for a midnight stroll without something metal in your pocket. I work night shifts and usually get home around 11:15 p.m. That night it was drizzling the tile hallway slick like someone had greased it with cooking oil. I walked fast, just wanting to get inside, fire up Netflix, and demolish some cold leftover pizza from the fridge. But something stopped me. At the far end of the hallway, under a flickering fluorescent light, there was a man. Just standing there. Not smoking, not pacing, not on his phone. Just standing. Like he was waiting for something. Or someone. I kept my head down, slid the key into my lock. Didn't look. Didn't act scared. But my heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Once inside, I locked the door. Twice. Engaged the deadbolt. And finally exhaled. But that feeling didn't go away. 5 minutes later, there was a knock. Not a gentle sorry to bother you kind of knock. More like the police about to raid your place kind. I froze. No one knew my address except a few close friends, and none of them ever showed up unannounced. I didn't move. Then a woman's voice called out, "Please, let me in. Just for a minute." Her voice was shaky, breathless. She sounded like she'd been crying or panicking. I looked through the peephole. She was in her early 20s, maybe 25. Soaked hair, red eyes. She kept glancing over her shoulder toward the end of the hallway like someone was following her. And yeah, you guessed it. The direction she kept looking in was exactly where that guy had been standing earlier. She whispered, "He followed me from the train station. I don't know what to do. I don't want to die." I knew this could be a setup. I'd read about these things. A woman plays bait, you open the door, and someone else pushes in. You lose everything, maybe even your life. But still, I opened the door. I don't know why. Instinct, empathy. I cracked it open just enough space to peek through like a refrigerator door. "Who's following you? Where is he?" She whispered. "I don't know his name. He's been trailing me for blocks. He's wearing a red hoodie." Yep, that was him. I opened the door wider, pulled her inside, slammed it shut, locked everything. We stood in the dark, no lights, no words. Then we heard footsteps, slow, heavy, right outside my door. I held my breath. She started trembling. Then, silence. I could hear my heartbeat, clear as day. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Then the footsteps started again, fading away. She sat down on the couch, clutching a pillow. Didn't say much. I handed her a glass of water. She thanked me. About 30 minutes later, she made a call. Said only, "Can you come get me?" A friend, maybe a boyfriend or a brother, picked her up. She turned back to me and said, "Thank you. I didn't know what else to do." And that was it. I never saw her again. No name, no number, no social media, just gone. Sometimes I think I did the right thing. Other times I think that was stupid. What if she was bait? What if that guy broke in? What if I died that night? No one knows. There's no evidence, no CCTV, no confirmation. Maybe I saved someone. Maybe I almost died because of one impulsive act of kindness. But I do know one thing. Ever since that night, I've had a doorbell camera, and I never ever unlock the door without thinking at least 3 times first. You've just heard 6 stories, some that made you laugh, some that gave you chills, and others that might make you rethink the smallest choices in life. Let me know in the comments, which story shocked you the most? What would you do if it happened to you? And if you're into real stories that sound like they came straight out of a movie, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Each week, I'll bring you the wildest confessions, revenge tales, and Reddit drama you won't believe are true. This is Reddit Echoes, where the truth is always stranger than fiction.